Hello and welcome to the Royal League, a relatively new two-player tournament. And maybe you could say it's a little bit of the equivalent to the Intermezzo Championship and International Championship just for two-player games, but it's relatively new. But a lot of players attended. I think in the first season over 600 players. The attendance now dropped down a little bit, but it's still on a similar or maybe a little bit higher level than the Intermezzo and International Championship. So yeah, quite popular tournament at the moment, and I'm also playing there in the Emperor run, which is the highest division. Similar to the International and the Mezzo Championship, the divisions, there are different divisions, and the lower you go down, the more leagues there are per division. But it's a little bit different, as you can maybe see, and it is to allow maybe for a bit of a quicker movement, because in this type of tournament, you can actually, if you, for example, are in count and have a very strong season, win your group, you have the chance to even go two divisions up. And also, if you are an emperor and you lose the league, you actually go two divisions down. So, if you're interested in the tournament, definitely take a look at how the promotion and relegation works. I think it's quite interesting. I'm playing in the Emperor League, in the highest division. In the two seasons before, I in the last season finished at the third position, and the first season I finished on the tied second place with Irene and Marta Pecheur on the second position. And so I think those were some solid placements. The winner of the first two seasons were both Venny Shadow, who is maybe a little bit of a two-player specialist, and he showed his strength in the two seasons before. And now, of course, it will be interesting to see how this season will be going. And of course, it would be a nice goal to maybe win this tournament, as I haven't won it before. So, yeah. Now we can maybe take a quick look at my opponents in the group, and then we take a look at the first game. Also, what I forgot to mention, this tournament is organized by Wolves, who is at the moment organizing quite a few very nice tournaments. For example, also the Mercurial ladder and the Sodium ladder. So yeah, definitely check out his tournaments. And yeah, as you can see, some games have already finished, but not from me. So I didn't take a screenshot just at the beginning of the season. And here you can see the opponents. We have Ben, Saru, LCFYX, Venny Shadow, Payada, Marta Pecheur, the world champion, and then also Gutemetralla. So some very interesting opponents in the first game that we are going to take a look at from this tournament. Probably I won't show all games of this tournament, but I want to show a few, and the first game will be against Ben. And Ben is, interestingly, if you didn't know it, at the moment actually the player with the most experience points in the app. For a long time it was Lao Wang, but yeah, since I don't know exactly how long, but since a few months at least, Ben has the most experience points. He finished over 10,000 games in the app, which is quite crazy. And as you can see, he also managed to win two games already, is in a very nice form. And let's see how I will be able to perform against him. I am playing in the first position in this game, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there are some strong culture leaders in H2 with Bach and Anthony Gaudi. However, there's no Shakespeare, we also have no Hollywood, no internet in H3. There's only Chaplin as a nice theater leader in H3, so there are some culture synergy, but not a completely crazy one. There's also Pierre in the game, we have Einstein, Steve Jobs, and Marie Curie as maybe some lab leaders or science leaders. Then we have Churchill, we have no Red Cross. In H2 we have Suez Canal and James Cook, so going for a bit of a colonization game could potentially be interesting. Darwin, of course, can also count as an interesting culture leader. We have Newton as a strong economic leader, and then there's also the Watt and Railroad combination, which could potentially be interesting. In H1 we have the Silk Road, which of course you know is at the moment apparently my favorite wonder. Then we have Gutenberg and Leonardo da Vinci for some alchemy and printing press synergy. We have Columbus, who can work very nicely in a colonization game. Joan of Arc is the only military action leader. And yeah, then we also have Barbarossa and Saladin, who is or maybe also quite strong in two-player games. And also, which is important to note, there is the Acropolis, not on the card draw, but in the deck, so that could be revealed, and that's of course something to take into account when playing a two-player game. And as you can see, I'm in the first position, and I just decide to take the Engineering Genius because I don't want to leave Ben with the Engineering Genius plus one of the other cards. For example, if I just go for Hippocrates, he could go for Engineering Genius and Colossus, maybe then for Hammurabi the next turn, or even just for Caesar, go for a bit of an aggressive play. So, if I go for Colossus, for example, because I want to go for some colonization play, then he could go for Hippocrates and Engineering Genius, and I think all of those things would just be too strong for him. And I think regardless of what he does, have a very solid turn. For example, if he goes for Hippocrates and then maybe the Colossus, I can then go for Hammurabi for 2 civil actions, have a very strong lead, have maybe the chance to get the Acropolis. If he doesn't want to commit to the Colossus, goes for Hippocrates and Frugality. Then there's even the idea of maybe going for Caesar plus Colossus with the Engineering Genius, putting some pressure on him, maybe being prepared to go for a colonization game. So I think hopefully the next turn will get a nice leader, and maybe also already a wonder if the Colossus is not taken. Ben makes the decision to go for Hippocrates and Frugality, has now a very solid leader, and also a yellow card in addition to that, leaves himself open for the Acropolis. And with that, with Caesar and Colossus being available for me, I made the decision to actually go for Caesar, build a mine, and take the Colossus. There is of course also Hammurabi. I could just go for Hammurabi, but as you can see, the Acropolis is coming down the road. I don't want to grab the Acropolis for 3, I think that would just be way too expensive. But if I go for Hammurabi, then the game will maybe tend to be a bit more peaceful, and I think in a peaceful game the Acropolis is just at the advantage, while now if I go for Caesar and the Colossus, maybe make the game a little bit messy. The Acropolis maybe doesn't give as much benefit to Ben, and with that he hopefully doesn't get a big advantage because of it. And also, as said, there is Suez Canal, there is James Cook. I can go for some colonies, I can go for some strength events. I will be able to finish the Colossus relatively quickly, hopefully with the Engineering Genius. I'm in first position, so I think that is a very nice position to maybe go for a bit of an aggressive Caesar Colossus play, and that is what I went for. Now, of course, I was very interested to see what I will draw. Sadly only one event, but at least one event. Also I have a tactic already, and at the next turn I can maybe think about seeding the Pestilence into the deck. Ben will go for Hippocrates. He builds a mine, increases his population using the Frugality, and then just takes the Urban Growth. He doesn't want to go for the Hanging Gardens, he doesn't want to grab the Acropolis for 2, and at the next turn, with not taking any of those cards, he makes it that he has still a chance to take the Acropolis. I will start pushing because even I at least will have knowledge about the Pestilence. I don't have a free population, but I just wanted to move the deck forward with having Caesar and Colossus, so I made a decision to push the Pestilence into the deck. Luckily there's no free religion revealed, and there are 2 resources from the development of crafts, and that could potentially allow me a very interesting play here. Because I could do something relatively normal now. I could, for example, increase my population, build a second lab, maybe build 1 step of the Colossus already, then maybe just increase my population again, even though that would mean getting very early into consumption, which I didn't like too much. I could also just finish the Colossus, increase my population maybe 2 times or something like this. But in both of those options, I maybe would go into consumption early, because otherwise I can only take the rich land. But there's also something else that is interesting. What I can do is something that I normally maybe wouldn't advise to you, but I think in this situation it is very interesting. I will now just finish the Colossus and just take the Acropolis as my second wonder. And now, I think normally going for 2 HA Wonder is not that often a good idea, because it's just very costly and takes a lot of civil actions, and of course those HA Wonders are quite nice, but often it's also just nice to have something to invest your resources into, to start snowballing a little bit. But for example, if you have library and then go for Rome roads afterwards, it's just way too expensive, and you will go for those 2 wonders at the expense of doing some other nice stuff. But I think the situations where it is nice to go for second HA wonder is maybe when the second HA wonder is not necessarily one that gives very big economical benefits, because then you can maybe allow yourself to delay finishing it for a little bit. And I think I can maybe have the Acropolis lying around for a while, finish it at the end of H1, and it's a 2-player game, so maybe I want to go for a bit of a military pressure. But then even the 1 strength of the Acropolis could be a bit useful. But if then at some point the game tends to become a bit peaceful, then the Acropolis could still also be quite big. And I take it away from Ben, of course, who now doesn't have a wonder, doesn't have the chance to go for the Acropolis. And so I thought that is a very interesting play here, even though it's a bit civil action heavy. But the cards that are coming down the row are maybe not the most interesting for me, maybe apart from the cartography, which I kind of would like to have. Also with finishing the Colossus, I do put a bit of pressure on Ben, who maybe has to go for Joan of Arc now after only collecting one Hippocrates token. That's probably the easiest solution for him, because I have an aggression, maybe I could even draw a second one, and if he doesn't increase his strength at all, then he might be a bit in danger. I will draw some cards, and I was happy to see that I draw 2 event cards, being able to push the deck very quickly. Sadly, no colony with the cartography coming down the row. I was hoping that maybe I could turn this game into a bit of a colonization game for myself. Ben will go for Joan of Arc, only collecting one Hippocrates token, but I think it's the correct decision for him, or everything else would just be too risky. And then he just builds the second lab, gets this economy going, and I will just start pushing, seeding the call to arms into the deck. Sadly, I still don't have a free population. That's a bit of the disadvantage of having gone for the Acropolis, and sadly now I get a bit punished with the development of warfare being revealed. Then I see the good harvest. Sadly, luckily there is not the development of religion revealed, which would maybe be a bit more painful to miss out on, and instead the development of politics giving me another colonization card, also another aggression, and the knowledge of the ancients. And the knowledge of the ancients is actually quite a big event in the situation, because I will have 2 HA wonders and Ben doesn't have any wonder at the moment, so that's quite a swingy event, and I was happy to draw it. Now it is my turn again, and I will increase my population. I will build a second lab, getting a bit of economy going, and then I really wanted to grab this cartography. I didn't draw a colony yet, but I will get some more draws with Caesar after Colossus, and now with Suez Cannon cooking the game, I just want to have the option, if I draw some colonies, to maybe turn this game into a colonization game, so I was willing to pay 1 civil action for the cartography. And then there's the question, do I want to take another card from the row, or do I just want to increase my population? And the only card that I think is worth thinking about here is probably the drama, because I have the Acropolis, there is Bach in the game, and it's just such a nice and easy combination that can so potentially be so powerful in 2-player games, that I think it could maybe be considered to just take the drama, be prepared for that, have that in hand, but I, at the end, rather went for increasing my population, being a bit more flexible for my civil actions at the following turns, and also being prepared for events. First of all, of course, the development of religion that could be revealed with the last HA event, but also for the pestilence that could be coming in the next event deck that I seeded. So if the event deck flips, I still want to be able to continue pushing with Caesar, and then not having a free population for the pestilence could actually be quite annoying. And it is of course a bit bad to miss out on the drama, because especially if this game turns out to be a little bit of a messy game where not a lot of economy is built, it can be quite of an advantage to have the drama in hand instead of the opera, because it's a lot easier to build and then such a cheap way to generate some culture with Bach. But at the end, with the pestilence coming, maybe without the pestilence I would have grabbed the drama, but with the pestilence coming, with me maybe wanting to continue to push, I at the end was willing to pass on the drama, even though it can potentially be quite strong, I think, in this game. Then I have to think, do I want to reveal the tactic, but I rather wanted to get 3 draws, maybe giving myself the chance to draw a colony, but I also want to keep the tactic, so I actually made the decision to discard a colonization card. But if I should go for the cartography, hopefully, and maybe also with potentially drawing more colonization cards, I will still be nicely prepared to win a colony. But with not any colony coming yet, with me not having to defend myself, I think it's maybe fine to discard one of them now. And now I actually do draw my first colony with the strategic territory. Ben takes the first copy of Knights, doesn't want to be very vulnerable. He has only one way to get out of corruption during his turn, and that is with building a religion. He could get punished if there's a free religion revealed, but if not, I think it's actually quite fine for him, as he has Joan of Arc and generates a little bit of culture now. Then with this last civil action, he will grab the frugality at the next turn. He has enough food to use it, and then maybe can make sure to get a bit of population out, which might be important for him because he doesn't know it, but there's the pestilence coming, and with that I think the frugality might be quite helpful for him. Now it's my turn. I want to push, and I have to think about what event do I want to push first. Do I want to have the strategic territory already in the next deck, or the knowledge of the ancients? And I went with the strategic territory, because it might allow me, if I win it quickly enough, to draw even more cards with Caesar, maybe allowing me to get even more colonies quickly, and so I wanted to have that in the next deck, and a knowledge of the ancients, while it is very strong at the moment. Maybe if it's revealed too quickly, I will get 2 resources out of it, which would not be bad, but I maybe would prefer to have the science. I at the end went for seeding the strategic territory first. The development of markets is revealed, and then I will push again, the knowledge of the ancients. I have full knowledge about the event deck. There's nothing that will really punish me, and there's even an event revealed that will punish Ben quite a bit for being weaker. The call to arms, we both are on very low civil actions, so now losing 2 is quite painful for Ben, and at the next turn he can't really do a lot of stuff, which is nice for me. This turn I will increase my population. It was a bit of a decision if I want to take the food or the resources from the development of markets. If I take the resources, I would have the option to just finish the Acropolis. Also, there is the strategic territory coming, so it would be quite nice to go for the cartography. I thought about if I maybe want to leave some science saved up so that I can also potentially go for monarchy or code of laws first. But I kind of want to win the strategic territory. I have discarded 1 colonization card, so I think I need a cartography, so I could just finish the Acropolis, develop the cartography, and then maybe take the rich land or something like this. However, with the pestilence coming, I just thought that maybe it could be important to have a little bit of extra food, especially also with the strategic territory coming, because that I really want to win it, but it will cost me a population, so I will lose a population to the strategic territory, I will lose a population to the pestilence, and if I don't take the food, I think I might get a little bit limited. Even now I might get a little bit limited on the amount of population that I will be having, but even more so if I don't take the food. So even though now I can't finish the Acropolis, I still went for the food, and that allows me, or even without it, I think I would have been able to increase my population. Now I can increase my population, take the rich land. I think that will potentially be quite a helpful card. Then I go for the cartography and build 1 step of the Acropolis to get out of corruption. At the next turn I can maybe finish the Acropolis, and there are some interesting cards coming down the row. Ben has only 2 civil actions, can't really take a lot of those cards, so at the next turn I can just finish the Acropolis and then have a lot of free civil actions that I can use to maybe take some cards. Actually leave monarchy and code of laws available for Ben, which normally is maybe something that you don't really want to do, but now with Ben only having 2 civil actions, I think it's just too costly for him to take both of them. Maybe he won't even take a single one of them, because he doesn't have the most science, and there's still the development of markets revealed, so he would have 4 corruption, and if he just takes monarchy, or if he takes code of laws, develops it, and takes monarchy, like this, he would have the hand space for it, but then he would have 4 corruption, so I'm basically guaranteed to get one of those cards, and so I don't think it's necessary to take one of them. And at the moment I'm quite low in science. I invested some science into the cartography. At some point there will be the knowledge of the ancients revealed, but it might take a little while until this happens. And with this I think maybe I at the end don't need those cards that much in this scenario, and maybe those will both be available even at my next turn still. I keep 1 aggression, the colonization card, and the phalanx tactic. I draw another colonization card, which is nice, and also 2 events, the new deposits and the barbarians. Ben won't see it, will go for the knights, increases population, builds 1 knight, is now at 4 strength, still weaker than me, but there's also no strength event coming any longer. He doesn't have a free population, so it would be nice to maybe punish him a little bit now with the pestilence being revealed. Probably the pestilence is not on top, because then he probably would have prepared for it with having Joan of Arc. But if I see 2 events, there's maybe the chance that the second next one could be the pestilence and could maybe punish Ben now. The Barbarians event is a little bit tricky, because with me seeding that much, there is the chance with also now finishing the Acropolis that I might have a bit more culture, but Ben is producing more, so hopefully I will either have the chance to be slightly lower on culture or to maybe just be stronger for the Barbarians, so I was fine to seed both the new deposits and the Barbarians into the deck. I will start with seeding the new deposits. Now the good harvest is revealed. It also helps, of course, a little bit with the pestilence and winning the strategic territory. And then I see the barbarians, and the pestilence is revealed, which I was happy to see, because Ben now has to lose some stuff, and yeah, that will be annoying for him. And if now the pestilence would be on top, he would see it and could prepare for it. So I was happy to see that the pestilence is out. Now, in order to get out of corruption, I need to increase my population, and I need to finish the Acropolis. And then I have 2 civil actions left, and it's an interesting question on what cards I want to take. Because there's monarchy, there's code of laws, and getting more civil actions might of course at some point be quite important. There's also a copy of irrigation. If I don't take it, I might miss out on it. There's no ocean liner service, and I think in such a game with low economy, maybe a bit of military pressure, maybe with winning a bit of colonies, having some early food production with the irrigation is actually quite strong. It's very cheap to invest into the irrigation, and there's also Barbarossa coming down the row, who maybe after winning the strategic territory that will be next, could be quite nice for me to have to rebuild some units units, especially if I should even draw more colonies. So I think the irrigation is something that I really want to have, and that's also the first thing that I will take. And then there's the question, am I willing to maybe pass on both monarchy and code of laws? And the question is yes, and not the question, the answer. The answer is yes, because I have still this phalanx tactic. I probably want to go for knights relatively soon, and then I just don't have the science to go for any of those techs in the near future. Maybe I could think about the monarchy, go for a little bit of an awkward play with doing actually a revolution going into Barbarossa, because with Barbarossa having the additional military action could actually be quite important, and it feels very awkward doing this with having the Acropolis, but maybe that could still be interesting to do. So maybe it could be nice, but I kinda didn't want to leave the Engineering Genius to Ben, because he doesn't have any wonder, and with the Engineering Genius he can just so cheaply finish the Magic Castle, doesn't take a lot of civil actions for him, he can easily afford it with having the Engineering Genius, even with being on bronze mines, and it will help him a lot for the military, produces him some culture, and easily takes all the pressure away that maybe I'm starting to build, even though I have to be a bit careful, because Ben has revealed the heavy cavalry tactic, and if he puts 2 more units into knights, he has actually quite a respectable amount of strength, so it's the question if I will even be doing some pressure, but still the Magic Castle I thought could be quite strong for Ben if he gets the Engineering Genius. Without it, it might be a bit costly for him to build with bronze mines, maybe still worth it, but a bit costly, and also of course ideally I want to go for the Suez Canal at some point, and then the Engineering Genius will also help me a lot to maybe build this, especially if I at this point maybe still will be in bronze mines or didn't upgrade my iron mines fully yet. So at the end I went for the Engineering Genius, but of course it felt a bit bad to pass on both of those cards. Now I am kinda dependent on the H2 government forms in order to get more civil actions, but that's at least true for both of us, so we both are very low in civil actions now, and yeah, so it's well, maybe the timing of the H2 government forms will now be quite a bit important, but at the moment we also both don't really have a lot of science available. I keep the 2 colonization cards in the tactic, I will draw even another colonization card, and I will also draw the developed territory. Ben seeds, he knows that the strategic territory is on top, and I'm able to win it, having to send 1 colonization card away, drawing me some additional cards. As you can see, I draw 2 more events with the immigration and the rebellion. Both of them may be at the moment not too great for me, because Ben has a religion while I don't have a religion. Now Ben has to lose something to the pestilence, which is a bit painful. As you can see, he lost a farm. He will then increase his population with the frugality, builds a knight, dispense the warrior, builds another knight, and now makes sure to get stronger. And that could actually mean that the 1 event that he has just seeded could potentially be a strength event. It could maybe be a bit brave, but I don't have the most population at the moment. I can't easily overtake him in strength. If I would have the medieval army tactic, I would be able to do it, but yeah, he can maybe have some hopes to actually be stronger than me, or he is of course maybe just afraid that I seeded some strength events, or it's a combination of both, but he definitely put some effort into getting stronger, but with me having Caesar Colossus, of course, he can just expect to see some strength events here. Then he has 3 civil actions left, he goes for the irrigation and starts upgrading to it, and that means that he at the next turn has enough food to increase his population, can maybe then just build a farm and make up for the pestilence and the farm that he has lost to it. Now it is my turn, and I actually didn't see a lot of strength events, but there's 1 event in the deck that could potentially be annoying. This is the Barbarians, because at the moment we are both in 8 culture. If I seed I have 1 more, I would have the most culture and I would have lose a population. And so here I make the decision to not seed. Maybe the immigration and rebellion I don't want to seed anyway, but of course the developed territory could be very interesting to seed into the deck and to continue pushing. However, yeah, I make the decision to not seed, but I think maybe I should have seeded, especially with the turn that I will be going for. So we can maybe first take a look at the turn, and then I can explain why I think maybe I should have seeded here. And yeah, first of all, I will go for Barbarossa. I will have enough food to build 1 unit with him. At the next turn I will be able to maybe go for another Barbarossa activation. I have the irrigation, maybe I will go for more colonies, so I think Barbarossa is just quite nice. He's available for only 1 civil action, and so I go for Barbarossa. I can still use Caesar's military action just to maybe reveal a tactic. The question is, which tactic do I want to go for? And with me not being on any warriors at the moment, I think the heavy cavalry is quite appealing. The downside is, of course, it's a bit more costly than the phalanx tactic, but it's maybe just nicer to go for just knights with Barbarossa, and so I revealed the heavy cavalry tactic. Went for Barbarossa, went for the knights. I have just enough science to develop the knights. I will develop it, and then I use Barbarossa going up to 8 strength, making sure that I can defend against an aggression, and yeah, and then I have 1 civil action left. And here I maybe maneuver myself into a bit of a tricky situation, and there is one way how I can maybe get out of the civil situation nicely, and that is with getting some additional science from the knowledge of the ancients. So, because with my last civil action I at the end make the decision to take this breakthrough, which I think is a very valuable card for me, with not being only in 2 science now, and would also be a very strong card for Ben to have, so I kinda didn't want to allow him getting this card, but as you can see I'm actually on, I have a full hand now at the moment. In the next turn I only can use the rich land, but even that is not that easy to use. But no, I could maybe build an additional farm or mine, make space in my hand, but it's maybe really not ideal with me having now a full hand. And an easy way out of this would be if I would be able to develop the irrigation. Then I could just develop the irrigation, get rid of the breakthrough, and have a nice amount of hand cards as well. Again, and because of that, I think I should cede the developed territory. If I lose a population to the barbarians, it would be annoying, but it's maybe also not the end of the world at the moment. Then I can just go for another Barbarossa activation, maybe building another knight at the next turn. If I now go for Barbarossa activation, I mean, I can also do this now, but then I also have 2 unhappy populations, so short term it does make that big of a difference on if I lose the barbarians or not. And I think it would just be extremely helpful if the knowledge of the ancients is revealed before my next turn. I can now see the developed territory, then I will get my Colossus draws. Maybe there's the chance I will draw something that I'm willing to push into the deck. Or I can maybe think about keeping Immigration or Rebellion, so it would come at the cost of maybe discarding a colonization card. And but then I can maybe push it the next turn, giving me at least a 50% chance, maybe a higher one if Ben also seeds, and he's stronger now, so he definitely might seed. So there's a relatively high chance that the knowledge of the ancients will be revealed. Of course, I might also lose to the barbarians, but as I said, maybe that is acceptable, and if I don't get the knowledge of the ancients, I might just have some problems with getting my cards out of my hand. So with that, I think I should have seeded the developed territory here, and that maybe also would have allowed me to keep both colonization cards instead of only keeping one. So here maybe I should have gone into I should have used my politics phase differently. I will draw the fighting band tactic. Ben will start seeding. There are the new deposits revealed, so neither the barbarians nor the knowledge of the ancients are revealed yet. We both gain 3 additional resources, and Ben will increase his population. I thought maybe he wants to rebuild his farm, but actually instead he goes for the iron, for the alchemy, and then just builds another knight, which caught me a little bit off guard, because I kind of thought maybe he just wants to rebuild his farm and get some food production going, and he instead goes for this knight. Thanks to the Hippocrates token, he won't have any uprising issues at the next turn, and with being on 13th strength, he is actually quite a bit threatening, which will be a bit problematic for me, unless I get a bit lucky and maybe draw a colonization card with the Colossus. Then I don't have to worry about this too much, but now I might be in danger of an aggression. The good news is that I have seen a lot of the H1 aggressions, and there are actually only 2 left in the deck, and those 2 are Kidnap and Enslave, so maybe the chance that Ben has one of those aggressions is not that big. On the other hand, he really made an effort into getting stronger, which then again might be an indicator that there is maybe an aggression in his hand. At my turn, I will get some draws from the Colossus, and now I have quite some issues with getting my cards out of my hand, and now at least I can push without there being the risk of getting hit by the barbarians, so I made the decision to push the developed territory now into the deck. If I push one of the H2 events, then again I might get hit by the barbarians, so I went for the developed territory 1, and sadly neither are the barbarians out, nor is the knowledge of the ancients revealed, which might be quite nice. Instead of array is revealed, which I was not too happy to see, because in a game like this, where there's low economy for both players, I think the foray with getting 3 food and or additional resources is just quite a big swing, and so I wasn't too happy to see this. And now the question is what is to do. I could just use Barbarossa in order to go for another knight, going up to 10 strength, making sure that I can defend against an aggression. But the problem is then I don't have any chance to make space in my hand, because if I then use the Ridgeland to build something, I would have an uprising issue, so I would have to destroy it again immediately, and then I can take only one of those yellow cards, and that's just not too amazing. So instead, I made a decision to use the Ridgeland, go for an additional farm, which at least might be somewhat useful to have with Barbarossa. Then I will use Barbarossa, but in order to build a warrior, which helps me a bit to get out of corruption, gives me an additional population after disbanding it, and then I have 3 civil actions left that I can use to take the revolutionary idea. So it's a bit of an awkward turn. I will have corruption, but the third farm might be somewhat nice for me. And the revolutionary idea, I think, is also a card that is nice for really both of us. But I also was quite a bit afraid, because Ben went for this knight. Even there are not that many H1 aggressions left the set, only Enslave and Kidnap, but especially the Kidnap is actually quite painful now for me if that should hit me, because he could take the revolutionary idea away from me, and that is a very big swing in this situation. 4 signs taken away from me and then being available for him would be quite bad. So also the Enslave would be a bit annoying, but maybe the Kidnap even quite a bit worse here. So I was quite a bit afraid, but I also don't think I have any nice alternative. If I maybe would have pushed the developed territory at a turn before, I could have now thought about pushing either Cold War or terrorism. Of course it might be, then I get hit by the barbarians, but there is at least a chance that the knowledge of the ancients is revealed, and instead of doing something awkward like this, I could maybe just go for some upgrades to irrigation or something like this, and have a bit of an easier turn. So now I was a bit afraid that I might get punished by an aggression. I keep the terrorism, which could be a very interesting event, and also the colonization card. I was hoping that Ben doesn't have one of those 2 H1 aggressions, but sadly he does have the Kidnap, and with that he will take the revolutionary idea away from me, and that is just such a big hit in the situation. Probably one of the worst kidnaps that I ever witnessed in one of my games. That in the situation is really quite a big swing, and I was not too happy, especially in combination with the foray. Ben now can now start building up his economy. Will start with going for alchemy. The next turn can maybe go for some iron production. Is still at 13 strength, is still threatening. The good news is he draws only 2 H2 cards, and there's now only 1 H1 aggression that he could have left in his hand. So hopefully maybe I get a bit lucky and don't get hit by another aggression. At my turn, I don't push, because if I see the terrorism, then we both would be at 13 culture. I would win the tiebreak and would lose to the barbarians, so I don't want to do this. Instead, I will now go for the irrigation, and when I go for 3 upgrades, I will be able to get out of corruption, and all of this food will be quite useful to have with Barbarossa. I can go for Barbarossa activation at the next turn, and so I think this turn was relatively clear for me. Of course, there are some cards that could be considered, for example the Rifleman, as we both have no infantry tech, but it's a very low economy game. I just don't think I can't really invest into Rifleman anyway. I don't have a tactic for it. I won't maybe draw the most cards, and Ben has already heavily committed to knights and the heavy cavalry tactic, so I think the Rifleman in this situation are actually not that important. And then the other cards, I can still go for James Cook maybe at the next turn in case I draw some colonies or something, and those yellow cards are also not too important, so just getting out of corruption I think should be the best thing here. I will draw some cards. The Immigration, which is not the best event at the moment, and the Spy, and sadly Ben has the other H1 aggression, the Enslave, giving him 2 additional resources, 2 additional food, and I will lose a population, so another hit against my civilization. At least no H2 aggression, but I was not really happy about the developments, because with all the resources from now the Enslaved, the Foray, and the signs from the revolutionary idea, Ben now can now use this to build up his economy. He has no alchemies going, he has no iron going, while I don't have upgraded anything at this point, and he has now just full iron upgraded, full alchemy upgraded. With the revolutionary idea, he maybe doesn't have the most difficulties to also get into a government form soon if one is revealed for him. This turn I made a decision to push. The terrorism I think will be an interesting event for me, because hopefully I will just be a little bit behind in culture, and then maybe I can destroy an alchemy or maybe even something bigger in case Ben went for something different at the time when it will be revealed. and no, I don't get hit by the barbarians, and the knowledge of the ancients is actually the third event, so if I went for the seeding the developed territory earlier on, maybe I could have had a chance to play this other turn a little bit differently, where at the end Ben took the revolutionary idea away from me. But it's still very nice to get the knowledge of the ancients. It's quite a big swing, 4 additional signs for me. Quite interesting to see this knowledge of the ancients like this. It's not that often that you have knowledge of the ancients where one player has 2 HA wonders and the other player has actually no wonder at all. So that's a very nice event for me. Then it's again the question what to do at this turn, because I felt I'm a little bit in trouble now, and I was not sure what I should do in order to best catch up. And at the end I made a decision to go for those team sports. Because when I go for building one this turn, it gets me out of corruption. It makes it that I have a lot of happy phases, meaning at the next turns I can use Barbarossa, maybe even complete the heavy cavalry tactic. Also the 2 strength makes me safe from another aggression, so I don't have to be worried about that. And after building one, I have 1 civil action left that I can use to take the breakthrough, which I think is just such an important card with being on very low signs. So I think this turn at the end maybe makes the most sense. And it of course means that I miss out on James Cook, but there's only 1 more colony coming. If I don't draw even more colonies, and I might not get a more straws in with wanting to use Barbarossa at the following turns and only being on 2 military actions. Then James Cook maybe only gives me 3 or maybe even only 2 culture in case I even don't win the next colony. So it's not like James Cook is overwhelmingly strong in this situation, and I can maybe also go for Darwin, maybe Newton in case I manage to upgrade to a scientific method. Riflemen are there again, but as said, I won't draw a lot of cards and I might just have to work with the heavy cavalry tactic anyway, and I think I rather need some cards that just help me immediately, like getting more happy faces and getting the 3 additional signs from the breakthrough. And that's of course also the strategy, but I just don't have the signs to invest into it, and at least Ben, he could go for it, but it's also a bit costly still for him as it might delay his government form. So at the end I think this turn is maybe the best. Ben of course might now go for the navigation, but there's only 1 colony coming, so if he wants to do this, I think it would be fine for me. I will draw 2 events, the Iconoclasm and also the Independence Declaration. Independence Declaration I probably don't want to push. Ben seeds, the Barbarians are revealed, and I luckily don't have the most culture at the moment. Ben will now go for the strategy, he will go for Bach, and he will go for the operas. He has now built up his economy, and with Bach and the opera has now a way to generate some culture, and I have to see what I will be able to do about this. At least he doesn't have the greatest economies, only 1 irrigation, so it's not like he can easily build those operas. 1 I might even be able to destroy with the terrorism that is coming, but still it is he sets himself up to just nicely produce some culture, and I have to see what I can do about this. And one nice thing that I can do about this is to go for this Iconoclasm that I have in hand, giving me the chance to remove Bach, and because of that I started pushing immediately at my next turn. There's also the chance that I might reveal the developed territory, which would maybe be fine to win now at my turn, and I just wanted to push the deck now quickly so that ideally Bach is removed just at the beginning of H3. The event revealed is actually the inhabited territory, so Ben seeded another colony, interestingly. Maybe it was at a point where he really wanted to push an event out of the deck, so interesting that he pushed that into the deck. I will now be able to win it, just sending away the knight, keeping my colonization card. There is the Suez Canal coming down the road, but sadly I don't have a colony in hand, and I also won't draw a lot of cards, so very likely I won't really be able to go for the Suez Canal, sadly. I will now use Barbarossa to build 1 knight. I will increase my population once I have so much food that I can't use all of my food on Barbarossa activations anyway. And again, there's the question, what cards do I really need from the row? Journalisms are too expensive at the moment anyway. I have already irrigations, I don't need selective breeding, I don't need cavalrymen, but 1 card that I think is very useful for me are the reserves, because some additional resources are extremely helpful for me. With being only in bronze mines, Ben early on paid 2 civil actions for the iron in order to deny myself the option to go for the iron. The coal is relatively late, it costs a lot of science, so it will be the question if I even will be able to go for it. So I go for the reserves, and then I have 2 civil actions left. I thought about taking an efficient upgrade, because if I should still go for the coal, that's just a very helpful event for me. But the question is, do I even need to go for the coal, or it would be nice, but I don't have the most science. So if it is the question, if there's a government farm and a coal available for me, probably the government farm is the more urgent thing that I need to fix. And after that, I don't have the most science left anyway. So it's the question if I even will be able to go for the coal. There's also still a copy of scientific method left. So the efficient upgrade definitely could be nice at some point, but I also pay 2 civil actions for it. And instead, I rather went for increasing my population one more time. That of course again means that I spend some food without using Barbarossa, but as you can see at the next turn I still have 6 food left, meaning that I still have just enough to go for 2 more knights with Barbarossa, which hopefully should be fine. And then with my last civil action, of course, it's the question what to do, but I think in this situation it is actually quite nice to just build another bronze mine, getting a little bit of additional production going. At the moment I have just more than enough population after having won the inhabited territory 1, and now I also have just enough resources in order to go for 2 Barbarossa activations if I want to at the next turn. One argument in order to take the efficient upgrade would be that the Suez Canal would be available for me at the next turn for only one, or at a 1 civil action area guaranteed, while now it definitely might be that Ben lets it stay on the 2 civil action area. You might argue that it is actually not that important, because I don't have a colony in hand anyway, but in this situation, first of all, maybe I need to leave myself open for luck, and it would be very lucky now to maybe with this just one draw one of the colonies, and if this happens, then out of the sudden with going for the Suez Canal with the Engineering Genius would definitely bring me back into the game. So it would be nice to be open for that, and maybe there is even an argument to going for the Suez Canal without having a colony in hand, because if I win the developed territory, then yeah, I could maybe just take the Suez Canal, still having a small chance left that I will draw a colony, but even if I don't, I still increase my resource production at least by 3 without having to spend any science. Then it definitely wouldn't be ideal, but it would also not be too bad with having the Engineering Genius available and not having to spend any science in order to go for this. So maybe even the better way to fix my resource production and going for the coal, because it allows me to go for a government farm while also having increased my resource production. So the Suez Canal, even though I don't have a colony in hand, actually could still be interesting, and then maybe it could be interesting to take the efficient upgrade just to make certain that it will be available in the 1 civil action area. But then I might just also have corruption, because I can't that easily increase my population. I can of course use Barbarossa, so with that I think it is a close decision, but at the end I just rather went for building this mine. And at the moment it's also not certain if I will be able to actually win the developed territory. And with only having 2 colonies, I think I wouldn't go for the Suez Canal. I keep the immigration and a colonization card and draw the conquistadors tactic. With having missed out on the rifleman, that one probably won't be very relevant. Ben sees the developed territory is revealed. I am willing to bid for this, because I also don't want to give Ben a colony. Maybe he will then go for a nice Suez Canal. And so I'm able to win this colony with sending a knight and a colonization card away. Ben makes the decision to go for the strategy, making space in his hand, allowing himself to go for the constitutional monarchy, which I still found a bit interesting, because he could have also played the revolutionary idea and went for the constitutional monarchy, and then at the next turn he could already go for the government form, while now he is at 5 science plus 4, 9 science, so he can't go for the common. So those could be a hint at 2 things. One thing could be that he has an aggression or a war in hand that he wants to go for soon, and I was quite afraid of that, because I can't really, after having sent away another unit, I can't go for a full tactic, so I will be vulnerable to an aggression, and that could be quite bad. The other hint could be that this one H1 event that is left could be an event that gives science, and the only one left would be the scientific breakthrough, because then Ben could actually go for the strategy, maybe allowing himself to go for an aggression, but also still being able to go for the constitutional monarchy at the next turn. So he will end his turn, and at my turn I will seed the immigration. I don't have any happy face issues. Ben might have some, so I thought it's just a nice event to push. I might get punished by the event, but I also thought it could be nice to see the terrorism revealed relatively quickly, and so I seeded the immigration, and the event revealed is indeed the scientific breakthrough, maybe explaining why Ben went for the strategy, and maybe giving me some hope that he actually didn't go for the strategy because of having an aggression in hand, maybe just wanted to leave himself open to draw an aggression, and then potentially going for it. So it gave me a little bit of hope that maybe there's actually no aggression coming, but I am definitely still quite a bit in danger of an aggression. This turn, as you can see, there is the Republic on the row. And yeah, I made a decision to go for it. I have a bit of additional science from the scientific breakthrough, and I just need more civil actions. If I stay on for civil actions for longer, it might be very bad for me, and if I don't take it, Ben might definitely take it away. And leaving myself with 4 civil actions, maybe he won't, but I didn't want to risk it, and so I went for the Republic here. I go for the Republic. I will use Barbarossa 2 times, going up to 12 strength, so I at least threaten to be able to defend against an aggression with having 1 H2 card in hand. But if Ben has an aggression, he definitely might try it, but maybe he also has some nice events that he wants to push, so I think at least being able to threaten threaten to defend could be quite important here. Sadly, after going for the Republic, I'm missing a civil action to go for the Suez Canal, but I mean, without having a colony and now not drawing any cards, it's probably not a good idea anyway, but I now don't even have the option. But there's another wonder that maybe could be interesting, because I still have this engineering genius, and I thought the railroad actually could be an interesting wonder. I have only bronze mines, of course, but the 5 additional strength could actually be a bit relevant in this situation, and even if I only get +1 resource production, I have this engineering genius 1, I can now take an engineering genius 2, so it doesn't really cost me that many resources, and I leave myself open to maybe having a shot at an early oil or something, which then could really out of the sudden give me a really big boost to my economy. At the moment I'm not that much behind in culture, there will now be the terrorism coming, which might be a bit annoying for Ben, yeah, maybe that could be quite interesting. Ben might take the railroad away, but it's also a bit costly for him. He needs to get out of corruption, and so I thought that could actually be quite interesting. And if I go for the railroad with the coal, that might be still also quite fine, I think. And if the coal is taken away by Ben, at least he has to spend some civil actions on a card that he doesn't need. So I wanted to take the engineering genius. I take the efficient upgrade, as I think it might be a useful card, and then I played this copy of reserves already for resources. I have more than enough food. The next turn I can go for more Barbarossa activations, and then maybe go for a leader like Darwin or Newton. There's the Iconoclasm coming, so probably I will go for Darwin, because at the time when I maybe went for something like Scientific Method, Newton might be gone anyway, so just going for Darwin, and then maybe using Barbarossa one more time at my next turn. Ben seeds, and the event revealed is the terrorism. He saw it with Joan of Arc, but there's not really any way around it for him. He will go for the revolutionary idea, goes for the Conmon, and he will go for a wonder, but not the railroad. Interestingly, the Suez Canal, with not having any colony in hand, but probably has a strong one, and with that and having a bunch of resources, he is willing to go for the Suez Canal here. I was relatively happy about it, because at least it means that I might still have the shot at going for the railroad. Ben will now go for an additional knight and also goes for Bach. At my turn I can't push, but I also wouldn't push, because the Iconoclasm being revealed now would be quite bad for me. And I, at this turn, will go for Darwin. Of course, I could maybe even just keep Darwin in hand, but I can already save 1 civil action this turn when I take a cannon, and also it would give a big hint to Ben that there's an Iconoclasm coming. Maybe he can just not push a lot and get still a lot of culture out of Bach. So I kind of wanted to not give him this hint and just went for Darwin this turn, but before I go for him, I want to go for 2 more Barbarossa activations, getting a lot of value out of him. Sadly also, of course, not getting any draws, but I'm now the strongest and have now a bunch of units very cheaply in knights, and after that I can go for Darwin, and I also will go for the railroad. Maybe there's even a world where it could be interesting to go for the Louvre, but it also would be quite greedy, and I think the Louvre alone isn't enough to compete against Bach, so hoping for an early oil and also getting the help from the 5 additional strength, plus maybe just also going for coal, I think is just more interesting than the Louvre in this situation. So I will go for the railroad. I definitely want to use the engineering genius. I could now just take the coal, but if Ben is willing to pay 2 civil actions to deny it, it would be perfectly fine for me. I still have the shot at getting lucky and getting early oil, and if I just get a strength plus a little bit of additional resource production, it's not ideal, but with the 2 engineering geniuses, it would not be too bad to have invested my resources into it, and instead I just go for 1 copy of cannons, maybe at least threatening to have something like mobile artillery in hand, and then also getting the wave in order to be able to cheaply build some units in case I need to. Now it is Ben's turn. First of all, I will also get some draws from the Colossus, a colonization card, the impact of competition, and also a war over culture. Impact of competition is at the moment relatively equal for both of us. Ben will finish the Suez Canal. I was now interested to see which colony he has, and he has the vast territory too, which helps him quite a bit with the population. So with him being stuck on only one farm, I think it makes sense for him to go for that. Even though it's not the strongest Suez Canal, it still helps him a bit. It allows him to go for an additional knight, making it that he is stronger again, and also maybe allowing him to build an additional farm or just put his population somewhere where he wants to. He then takes the urban growth, the reserves, and the cannons, just getting some yellow cards, and at the next turn maybe he can start going for some operas. And on my turn, of course, I destroyed one of his labs with the terrorism. At my turn, I made a decision, I think, to not push, because he might have seeded some strength events, and I will get stronger this turn with finishing the railroad. Ben doesn't have an easy way to get stronger. If he goes for cannons, it means he doesn't go for opera, so it would be perfectly fine for me if he does that. So I made a decision to not push, even though it might, of course, be nice to get an iconoclasm out quickly. However, at the moment, Darwin is even giving me a bit more value than Bach, because both of the leaders are getting at the moment giving a 2 culture, but I can maybe get some civil action soon, of course. Bach might be a lot stronger for Ben than Darwin is for me. First, at this turn, I definitely want to take the breakthrough. I think getting 3 additional signs for 1 civil action is just something that I have to take. Then I also want to finish the railroad, getting stronger, getting a bit of resource production going. I could have also gone for a coal upgrade, getting more resource production, but I want to leave myself open for an early oil and want to get stronger, so I think it's better to finish the railroad here. And then I have 3 civil actions left. The big question is here, do I even want to take the coal? Because it's now already age 3. Going for a coal upgrade at the next turn is definitely quite late. It costs me 7 signs, some civil actions. On the other hand, with the railroad, it is also quite a big boost to my resource production. And also with the efficient upgrade, the 1 upgrade is very cheap in resource-wise. And then maybe I'm set up to really build some multimedias or movies or something. And maybe like this somewhat stay up don't fall behind in culture, especially if maybe Bach is removed quickly with the iconoclasm. So at the end I made the decision that I still want to have the coal, because I thought maybe I can just take the reserves and instead of doing something taking the coal. But if I take the coal, I can also take the patriotism, for example, and while the reserves is more flexible on where I can use the resources, the additional military action from the patriotism might actually also still be quite important for me. So at the end I went for the coal and the patriotism instead of the coal. I could have also taken patriotism and something like architecture, maybe allowing me to go for some cheaper urban buildings, and maybe I want to hope for an early oil anyway, but the coal could still be fine, even though it's late, and so at the end I went for the coal, but it was actually not a clear decision, because at this point it's relatively late, but at the end I thought it might still just be worth it with the efficient upgrade, and now at least having some additional signs from the breakthrough, I thought maybe it can still be worth it to go for the coal, and I wanted to at least have the option, and with taking it I've not committed to it, so if there's an early oil I could still go for that. I keep the colonization card and the impact of competition. I actually draw 2 tactics. The mechanized army tactic could maybe be potentially interesting. Ben seeds, and sadly the immigration is revealed, which at the moment hits me and doesn't hit him, but he will go for some more happy face this turn anyway. Maybe I wouldn't go for team spores the next turn anyway, so probably maybe I just have to expect to get hit by it, but of course not ideal to see it, and sadly my own event backfired here. Ben this turn goes for the opera, sadly gets now a discount with Bach, so the iconoclasm I definitely would have liked to see it to be revealed now, but it would have been a bit unlucky for Ben. He then just takes the patriotism, the reserves, loads up on some additional resource cards. And with taking 2 cards from the row, also making it maybe a tiny bit awkward for me, because I really want to take a multimedia, but then I need to take those Air Force now, which is of course not too bad with having Darwin, but maybe there's the iconoclasm revealed now. I see the impact of competition, because it would be nice to see the iconoclasm. This turn I at the end didn't plan to take any technology card from the 2 and 3 civil action area, and now I just could be nice to see Bach removed as quickly as possible. So I see the impact of competition, and the event revealed is actually one from Ben. It's the arms industry, giving us both 4 additional resources, and the additional resources are definitely quite useful for me, probably also for Ben, but he has all those yellow cards. Maybe it's even the more useful for me now. I will go for coal this turn. There's no early oil. I could maybe do something different, but I'm missing 1 resource to just build 1 multimedia, and so I thought maybe it is still fine to go for this coal now. I can go for 1 upgrade with the efficient upgrade, but as you can see I'm still not nearly out of corruption, and so I made a decision to even go for a 2nd upgrade. I think normally second upgrade is maybe a bit too late now, but with it helping me to get out of corruption, I still went for it. I'm not 11 resource production, maybe that will give me still a little bit of an advantage. I definitely wanted to have one multimedia allowing me to upgrade my culture production, also setting up a bit of an economy if I'm lucky in getting some impacts. Maybe that can allow me and help me to catch up. There's also Einstein potentially, even though PL could also be a very interesting leader to get for me with having team sports. And then with my last 3 civil actions, I made a decision to go for the revolutionary idea. Meaning that I won't go for any of those air forces. Ben has now the chance to deny the air forces from me. It's a bit risky, but I was hoping with me maybe having the chance to go for something like fundamentalism or military theory, and maybe at least having the chance to go for something like mechanized army tactic. I just felt like maybe I can still somehow manage, and I can maybe just hope that Ben doesn't want to go for something with Air Force because he doesn't really have the science to go for it. Would probably be a bit more of a hate pick, and at the moment maybe he has mobile artillery in hand. It could potentially be problematic, but he also has just Bach and can build more operas, so I felt like I can maybe have to take some risks here, and at the end was willing to give up on the Air Force. I could have also taken the urban growth instead of the revolutionary idea, but I have now a solid amount of resources. I still also have some science saved up, but I want to be able to go for the multimedia and also soon again being able to threaten to go for something like military theory, and with that I am also willing to take the revolutionary idea. I also was really hoping that maybe I get a bit lucky with my impact draws now, because that might really help me to maybe win this game at the end if I now be able to go for some multimedias. Maybe I'm nicely prepared for a bunch of impacts, and if I'm a bit lucky with my impact draws, and I need to be lucky because sadly I have only 2 draws with being on Republic, then that could be a nice way for me and to help me to win the game. Sadly I don't draw any impacts this time. At least I got the impact of industry before, so that was already a fine impact, and now I have another copy of mechanized army and also another copy of modern army, so I know now that Ben doesn't have those tactics, but he probably wouldn't use them anyway. Ben will increase his population, builds another opera, builds even another opera, or upgrades an HA temple to opera. Is not 14 cultural production. I was really hoping that maybe he would see it and that the iconoclasm would be revealed, preventing him from just upgrading this temple, costing him a lot of cultural production, but sadly he doesn't see it, and with that he is now really generating a very big cultural lead, and sadly I didn't draw any impact, meaning I again can't guarantee it or can't make it faster to see the iconoclasm revealed. Ben is then taking the multimedia, the revolutionary idea, so he can even go for more cultural reduction if he wants to. I at my turn can't use my politics phase, sadly. I will go for Einstein because I know that the iconoclasm is coming. Of course I could hope for Pierre, but Einstein is available now, and the additional science might be quite nice. Hopefully I will be able to develop on average at least 1 technology per turn, and then he maybe also sets myself up potentially for some nice impacts. So I go for Einstein. I will choose him as a leader, go for the multimedia, build 1, increase my population to get out of corruption, and then I will take the urban growth, and also now I made the decision to take the air forces, because just being able to maybe build 1 makes me a bit safer than not having them at all. Maybe I could have also done something different, just playing the revolutionary idea. Maybe I need to take some risks, but this turn it was a bit easier to implement taking this, and so I then made a decision to do so. But maybe I could also have just used Darwin to take the satellites or something. It's not ideal, but helps with some impacts. It's a very cheap tech in order to get some culture out of Einstein. But it might also make it that the game ends a bit quicker, potentially. And maybe with me now going for a bit of economy, it might be beneficial for me if the game goes for 1 turn longer, potentially. I keep again the mechanized army tactic and our colonization card. Oh, actually I only draw now the impact of industry. I of course only seeded the impact of competition so far. Now I get a bit lucky. The impact of industry is the... So I made a quick pause here, so if I paused in an awkward moment, then don't be confused. So yeah, I draw the impact of industry now, who is a very solid impact for me. Ben seeds And I was a bit unhappy to see that there's sadly still no iconoclasm revealed instead of freedom of movement, which Ben will use to put a knight into the irrigation, getting a bit more food production going, and after that he will increase his population, takes the engineering, which might allow him to save a bit of resources still, and also might be nice for something like impact of progress, which he maybe could potentially be afraid of with me now having Einstein. And then he rebuilds the knights, so putting the knights in irrigation basically saved him a civil action, because if he just wanted to build an irrigation, then it would have cost him on civil action. Now he got this one for free and just could use one of his 3 military actions to rebuild the knights, staying on 23 strength. But with Bach not being removed, Ben has now a 30 culture lead, and I was a bit afraid that it will get difficult to catch up, especially because Ben also has already pushed 2 impacts, which made me worry a little bit. At least I have the impact of industry. If I get fast food chains as my wonder, maybe some more nice impacts. The game is definitely not over. There's also the endowment that I might have the chance to take at my next turn, but I was a bit worried. At least I have an impact now, so I can push the iconoclasm, removing Bach, but maybe the iconoclasm was now a bit too late. At least at Ben's last turn it would have been nice to see it. Of course, even earlier would have been better for me. And now maybe Bach at the end stayed a little bit too long in this game, and his power puts me now in a bit of a difficult situation. Now it's my turn. I make the decision to build this arena, fixing my happy faces and also giving me 2 additional points for the impact of competition that might be coming soon. It's relatively cheap, I need the happy faces anyway, and so I choose this to get out of corruption. And then I, with my remaining civil actions, will take the endowment, increase my population 2 times, take the satellites, and then play the revolutionary idea. I didn't have enough, or I used the freedom of movement first of all to put a philosophy into multimedia, so that's why I had so few resources left, so I couldn't build a multimedia normally, but at least I have 7 culture production, and then as said I just built this team sports with the urban growth for only 1 resource, but that 1 resource actually was the difference between getting out of corruption or not. Actually not, because I increased my population, but it fixes my happy faces in case there's an impact of happiness coming, and also it makes myself better prepared for the impact of competition. And then I increase my population 2 times, and at the end take the satellites. I thought about taking the bro spots, but probably I don't want to invest into the bro spots and the satellites. I mean, bro spots is even a cheaper technology, and I think even if I take the bro spots, and then there are 7 cards left, so I think even then Ben can't easily end the age, if I am not mistaken. So yeah, but I also thought not revealing too many cards could be nice, giving me maybe a higher chance to see the fast food chains revealed potentially, or maybe not giving it Ben already the next turn. So yeah, at the end I went for the satellites. There's maybe the chance that I draw the impact of progress, and yeah, but maybe just taking the bro spots as a cheaper technology could be fine as well, but the satellites will also give me a bit of additional strength. I thought about taking the movies, but if I want to go for fast food chains to United Nations, then it might actually be if I don't get the engineering genius, and that will actually, there's also 1 copy of reserves left, but there are not that many cards left that give me additional resource, and if I don't get one of them, then I won't have enough resources anyway to finish the fast food chains and build another one of those expensive buildings. And with that I also didn't go for the movies and I have the chance to build multimedias anyway. At the end I just went for the satellites, but either of those 3 techs maybe could have been a fine pick at the end. Now again with my 2 draws I was really hoping that maybe I might get a nice impact. So that could be really helpful at the end to maybe close the culture gap, and there is at least a seedable impact of government at the moment not so great, but if Ben leaves me the civil service and I maybe also get a chance to get a military theory, at the end could maybe turn out to be a solid impact at least. Ben seeds, the impact of competition is revealed, which is slightly better for me, but it also means that Ben has already a 3rd impact in there, which worried me again quite a bit. And he will be able to go for multimedia. Greasing's culture production will also go for chaplain. He could have had a chance to deny me the fast food chains, but there's also the United Nations, and it would be very costly for him. He can't easily go for a leader, he wouldn't be able to go for the multimedia, so he just lets the fast food chains stay on the 3 civil action area, and just rather sets some additional culture production up for himself. and as you can see, he again has a very big culture lead. Now it's almost 40 culture already, so I was quite a bit worried at this point. But no, I have to try, and I will start seeding the impact of government into the deck. The event revealed is the impact of industry, so another one of mine impacts, and giving me +5 points against Ben. I this turn will go for the civil service, I will develop it, it will be nice for the impact of government, and I can just get it in basically for free, and then I will go for the fast food chains, because with having that many mines and farms, it is actually quite a decent wonder and definitely stronger than the United Nations. It would also be the stronger wonder for Ben, so even though it costs me an additional civil action, I just want to take it here, and then with my last civil action I made a decision to develop the cannons, because I don't really have the science to go for, if I for example go for satellites, I don't really have enough science to go for 2 more techs at the next turn easily, especially if I maybe want to leave myself open to go for the military theory, so I just developed a cannon for 3 culture with Einstein, and then the next turn I can go for the satellites and the air forces, or I can go for satellites and military theory, get 2 more techs with Einstein, I can play the endowment, I can finish the fast food chains, and maybe build 1 more thing. Sadly, I have not enough resources to build a multimedia. I couldn't really take one of those yellow cards very easily, and with that, I maybe just have to build a religion, or maybe a farm, or depending on what impact I draw, maybe also something else. And then the next 2 cards that I draw, there is actually one that is quite potentially strong, the impact of progress. Sadly, Ben took the engineering, which he will be able to develop, so it won't be an incredibly big impact, but if he doesn't take the military theory away, which I was hoping, then maybe the impact of progress could turn out to be at least an impact that gives me something like +8. While the impact of harmony is not that great. It's relatively similar for us at the moment. Ben will go for the United Nations, takes the engineering genius, takes the urban growth, so he doesn't take the military theory away, which I was happy to see, but the urban growth might allow him to maybe build more stuff at his next turn, and so he will end his turn now. I at my turn will then seed the impact of progress into the deck. The event revealed is the impact of architecture, so at least it is only a neutral impact, and if Ben doesn't see it, then maybe it's also nice to see it revealed now, as Ben might build more urban buildings at his next turn. And in my turn is mostly relatively clear, there's only one decision that I have to really face, but first of all I want to play the endowment, I want to go for both of those techs for the impact of progress and government, I want to finish the fast food chains, but I can do this, and then I have 1 additional civil action that I can use, meaning I can build 1 civil thing and then put the other unit into the military. And I think the 2 things that I can consider here are either religion or farm. Sadly, I don't have enough resource to put something into multimedia. I have enough resource to put something into team sports. Would be nice with impact of happiness, but the impact of architecture and competition are both already out. And then I have basically the option for the religion, which gives me 1 safe culture, but the farm also gives me 1 safe culture with the fast food chains, and both are basically preparing for different impacts. The farm prepares for a potential impact of agriculture and balance, where I both would get +2, while the religion prepares +2 for the impact of happiness and +2 for the impact of variety. And at the end, I'm not sure if I did the right decision, because all of those impacts are actually very similar in how strong they are. So Ben potentially could have seeded all of them. At the end, it's just a wild guess. But maybe with me having 3 farms, he would have rather not gone for something like agriculture. But who knows, if he maybe wanted to push, it could have still been a seedable impact. But maybe I should have actually gone for the religion. I instead went for the farm. Then I can build a cannon, and will then finish the fast food chains for 26 points. And so it was quite a solid last turn with the endowment, 2 techs with Einstein, and this relatively big fast food chains, meaning that at the moment, after also getting my culture reduction, I'm actually in the lead, but of course Ben will get 1 more culture reduction and United Nations, and while my impacts are somewhat solid, those are also not that great. There's no impact of tech, which maybe would have been nice, but I'm not sure. That one also wouldn't have been that big actually, so that also wouldn't have been a lot bigger actually. I mean, it would have been +8, so similar like the impact of progress. Impact of science would have been big, impact of strength potentially, but I didn't have a lot of draws, and for the amount of draws that I had, I already think I got some solid impacts out of it. Ben will build one step of the United Nations, will disband some knights, builds multimedia, builds a religion, plays the reserves, the patriotism, will build a warrior, so sadly it's looking really like impact of variety, which I now didn't prepare for with not building the religion and instead building the farm. Ben will finish the United Nations, at least only, or it gives him 16 points with building the religion, and I maybe should have seen that he will build a religion, and with building the religion he is better prepared for impact of happiness and variety. On the other hand, I have to hope for some good impacts anyway, so maybe I needed to hope for impact of agriculture and balance, but no, it's at the end just a guess what he might have seeded, and now there will be the final impacts, and Ben will be going into those with an 18 culture lead, so if he maybe at some point was forced to seed an impact which maybe somehow backfired, then I have some hopes, but if he has just solid impacts for himself, then it will be very difficult to catch up. And sadly, as you can see, the first impact is a very solid one for him, the impact of culture, giving him +10. Then there's the impact of variety, so I could have had 2 points more in this if I would have built a religion, giving both of us +16. And then there's my impact of government, giving me +5 against him, allowing me to catch up a little bit. And then there is the impact of progress, which is quite a solid one, but not enough to close the big culture gap. And so at the end, Ben is able to win this game. It's actually somewhat close. I'm only 15 points behind, so if there would have been a neutral impact instead of the impact of culture, I would have been only 5 points behind. So at the end, still somewhat close, but I still felt in the last turns that my chances were relatively slim. But at least there still was something possible, and it was relatively close. But sadly, at the end, I lose this game. And I think this game maybe went into the wrong direction in the beginning of H2, where I got hit by both of those H1 aggressions, which from my perspective was a bit unfortunate because I knew those were the only one left in the deck, but Ben had those and went for the knight, put some pressure on me, made the right decision with that, and then taking the revolutionary idea away was a very painful kidnap for me. The enslave and the foray revealed gave him some additional resources to develop his economy quickly, and I think in this moment the game maybe shifted into his direction, while I then didn't have quite a nice economy. Had to build some military in order to get stronger. I won a bunch of colonies but didn't get a payoff with the Suez Canal because I didn't draw a lot of cards in H2 and didn't have the colony draw. And I still think I somehow nicely recovered with the railroad, with getting some Barbarossa activations going, and then building up those 11 resource productions and some multimedia and things with Einstein. Maybe if the iconoclasm would have been revealed at a perfect time, that could have been already made the game quite a bit closer. But at the end, I sadly got punished for maybe not playing it ideally at the end of H1 at the beginning of H2, and Ben seized the opportunity and then put himself into a very nice position. But I think it was a very interesting game to show, with a bit of an aggressive play early on and also a double HA wonder play against no wonder play, at least until H2. And then at least for me, a relatively low economy game where I needed to recover in H2. So I think it was an interesting game. At the end, sadly, I didn't take the win. Congratulations to Ben. And as we don't take a look at the standings, because this game is basically the only thing that changed compared to the things that you've seen at the beginning. But after the next game that we take a look at from this tournament, we can maybe take a look at the standings then again. So then I hope it was an interesting game for you. Thank you for watching. I also want to say a big thanks for all of you who supported me on Patreon. I'm very grateful for that. And then thanks for watching and see you in the next video.